So, first off, I want to say that you're not imagining things. I am uploading this video in a lower resolution using a internet hotspot to upload these videos. So, I'm going to process them at probably 480 or 360p, mainly because there's no video going on, just a still image. So, it doesn't really need crazy resolution because it's just an image that's sitting there. So it's kind of a waste to process it at 1080p or anything like that. So it'll probably be 480 or 360 or something like that, just because. Second off, I do like making these videos, or not videos, but just kind of sitting here talking to the well, not really talking to a camera, but just doing these videos like this, whatever you want to call it, these kind of podcasty type videos. So, a couple things that I wanted to talk about. So a while back, I talked to a friend of mine. This is kind of the big one that I wanted to throw out there. I talked to a friend of mine, and when I was talking with him, I mentioned how whenever I go out and ride my bike, I ride my bike at night. I don't go ride my bike during the day or the morning or anything. I go at night. The later at night, the better, because there's, people aren't outside. And not because, I just don't want to see people, but that is a plus because, at night when you're riding, you're not having to worry about, the parents walking, taking their kid out for a walk or something, or pushing the kid down the street in the stroller, or the family out walking the dog with the 10-foot leash where they're on one side of the street and the dog's allowed to go wherever the dog pleases. She's not having to contend with that. Plus, a lot of people don't want to be out that late at night because there's a lot of people, there's a lot of, I guess, not really stereotypes, but a lot of kind of people that have that thing like, oh, nothing good happens late at night, stuff like that. Whereas, it's not really accurate. I mean, obviously, depending on where you're at, I mean, it could be true, I guess. But where I'm at, there's enough traffic around the clock, and there's a lot of, and there's still, even in the later hours of the day, I'm not talking about like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, like 9, 10 o'clock at night kind of thing. There's still enough people out and about and stuff like that I mean, yeah, anything can happen anywhere, but my main thing was when I was just starting out with riding my bike, my fitness level was in the toilet. I would ride, from one like picnic bench to the next, and basically need to take a break, take a drink of water or whatever. Now, I'm able to ride the full hour and a half I ride, essentially without stopping. Obviously, do have to stop sometimes because whether it's to fix something with the bike, or fix something with clothing or something like that. Your shorts aren't sitting quite right, and something like they twisted on your leg or something like that, or whatever. Sometimes to figure out why my water bottle won't go back in the cage, those kind of things. A couple rides ago, I had to adjust my rear derailleur, and I mentioned that in the last video. But a lot of it was I just didn't want people to see, this overweight, out of shape guy riding his bicycle, struggling to make it 100 yards. And I talked with a friend of mine, and I'm sure I've mentioned this before, but it's always worth repeating. And a friend of mine is in, compared to me and compared to many, he's in really good physical shape. And he told me, he said, man, he said, I'm gonna tell you right now, he said, I have more respect for the person that's out there, struggling to go 10 feet, than the person who's sitting at home stuffing their face with chips and snacks and whatever else complaining that they're out of shape and overweight and whatever, and isn't doing anything to better their situation. You know, because it's easy to just sit there and sit at home. And obviously, like, there's some days, this past week, I rode Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and I took Thursday off. When I got home from work, I was tired, and I ended up getting home. I went to bed for a few hours. I set my alarm clock to wake up after a few hour nap, and then I'd reassess if I wanted to ride my bike or not. And when I woke up, I decided, I was like, I'm gonna just go take a shower, shave, go back to bed. And that ultimately was a smart decision on my part, because I was tired. And then I also figured, I rode Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. What's taking Thursday off? I'm gonna ride Friday and Saturday. Sunday, I'll probably ride in the morning if I ride. But it's always good to have rest days in there. I mean, I don't want to call them like a cheat day, because that day, I don't even remember what I had for lunch. I had chicken. Actually, that would probably be a cheat day, because that was chicken tenders and fries and a thing of cheese to dip the chicken tenders in. A friend of mine had tried cheese with chicken tenders, and he was like, "Oh, this is good." So the next time I went, I had to try it too. So, but one thing I did notice is, after I changed out those batteries, I know I talked about this last time, I changed out the batteries and those two sensors on the bike, and now they're working perfect. So that was definitely what was going on with those two sensors. Another thing I switched out, and it was really more of an aesthetic kind of thing. But a while back, if you're into cycling, you've probably seen these. You may have one. You may have thought of buying one. You may not have. But they make mounts for bike computers and lights, bike computer and camera. But it basically mounts on the front side of the stem. You basically take two of your stem bolts out, bolt this bracket in there with some spacers and stuff like that, so everything sits correct. And then it puts out in front of your stem, your computer, and some of them you can mount a light or a GoPro, or other lightweight electronics to the underside of that bracket. And I looked at them, and I run a Garmin, I think it's the 130 plus maybe, cycling computer. And I will say this, and this is more just kind of why I went with the 130, if you are looking at different cycling computers and whatnot, is that definitely don't just go by what everybody else is using, or you've heard a lot of people like, oh, I'm running the 1040 or the 530 or stuff like that. I think those are a couple of their models. What I recommend doing is going on the website, and if I'm not mistaken, Garmin has a comparison tool, and you can look at the features on each cycling computer. And I wouldn't recommend going with what'll fit you right now, but look at what features the computer has and think realistically. That computer, unless something catastrophic happens to it, something happens, you get in a crash and it breaks, or gets knocked off of the mount, which has never happened to me yet. It coming off of the mount or crashing, which hopefully neither do happen. But the point I'm making with the computer is, realistically, think 3 to 5 years down the line, is what I would say is the life expectancy of one of these computers. Think about where you're going to be in 3 to 5 years, and be honest with yourself. you don't want to buy something where, next year you're going to be needing, you're going to want a power meter on your bike. So you're going to need a computer that can handle that too, and display your watts and stuff like that. If you have an e-bike, they make ones that are compatible with e-bike stuff. If you have electronic shifting, they have ones that are compatible with that, and have features for that. So I recommend being realistic with yourself. Me personally, I'd look at the power meters, and with the cost of them, I'm not riding I'm riding to better my health. But if they were, say $100, $200, then okay, sure. But they're not. They're much more expensive. And I've actually seen, I think they make one for SRAM, is a chain ring that has the power meter built into it, which that in my case, because a lot of the power meters I've looked at actually use a clipless pedal, not a flat pedal. And I've done the whole clipless pedal thing. I went through that phase, I'm gonna call it, because for me, I think I used the clipless pedals for, I don't even think, 6 months. And what made me switch away from the clipless pedals was, I had one time I was going up a climb, and it's not much of a climb, but it's not just a graceful climb. And my chain jumped off of the gear. I forget if it came complete, if it like went between the frame and the cassette, or what exactly happened. But I basically lost my forward momentum, and I had to quickly get get unclipped. And that was it was like, okay, yep, nope, this is, it basically lost my confidence in riding the bike, because I'm like, okay, this is going to happen again. It didn't, but mentally, I was in that space of, this is going to happen again. And, once you get in that space, you're not enjoying the ride, you're waiting for a malfunction to happen, and that's not enjoyable. So I ended up switching to a different set of Crank Brothers pedals. The pedals I went with were basically, one side had the clipless pedal, attachment point, and then the other side was a flat pedal. So when I wanted to ride, if I was just testing something, and I was just going to wear, some Crocs or some tennis shoes or something, and just go down the street and back up the street, just to make sure whatever I did was working right or whatever, I wouldn't need to put my cycling shoes on. I could just go with what I have on my feet at the time. And I liked those. The problem is that I have wide feet, and the platforms for those pedals are very narrow, so it wasn't supporting my foot as good as it could. Eventually I went to a set of P&W. I talked about these in the last video. I went with a set of P&W pedals, and they're nice and wide. They go completely across the underside of my shoe, support my foot well, and the pegs on them really bite into the bottom of my shoe. So they're they work very well for my style of riding. And like I mentioned, if I need to quickly get my foot off of the pedal, I'm not attached to it. Now, I understand, there are people on both sides of the fence with clipless pedals and flat pedals. I say at the end of the day, ride the pedals that you're happy with and that you enjoy riding with the best. I don't know if there's any studies done on this. I'm sure I could find that there is, but people do say that you make more power with clipless pedals, because you're able to not only just to push down on the pedal, but you're also able to pull up on the pedal too, because you're attached to the pedal. Whether or not that actually is, adding a measurable amount of power, I don't know. Um, because I'm gonna say this: if you're, you would have to have the same rider. There's a lot of things that, you'd be having to test the same rider, and if someone's used to using a flat pedal or used to using a clipless, obviously they're gonna ride. If you're used to riding a flat pedal, you're not gonna pull up on your foot. If you're used to riding clipless, then you might be pulling up, but you're not pushing down on the pedal quite as hard. So I don't know. I don't have the data on that, but it's one of those things. I wouldn't make your cycling decisions based on what the community as a whole thinks is cool or trendy or whatever. Make your cycling decisions first and foremost based off of your safety, and second, your enjoyment. Um, Safety is number one. I kind of, something I thought about the other day was, back when I first got into, first when I got my first vehicle. It's you're in high school, you don't have much money. You're making how much ever you're getting a week cutting the grass at home, doing little, odd projects for the parents around the house. Or at least that was my uh, experience in high school. It was like, oh hey, you need some cash. I want to take the girlfriend out this weekend, and be like, oh, your mom could use some shelves in the laundry room. So dad would give you the credit card, and you'd go to Home Depot and buy, some shelves and some brackets, and you already had a box of screws at the house, and you already had a saw and a level and whatever else. And you'd go over to Home Depot and you'd get the stuff to put in the shelves, and you get back to the house and it'd be like, okay, well, it costs $100 for materials, so I'll pay you $100 to put the shelves in. And you put up a few little shelves for mom in the laundry room, and then she'd be happy because she has space to put whatever stuff on the shelves. So that was all that was. But in doing that, it was like, when some of the people, they had little jobs working at a little restaurant or something, or maybe they worked at their parents' business and actually made a few $100 a week. So it was kind of one of those, like, you were trying to do the cool things like other people were doing, but on a budget. And then, I got my second vehicle. It kind of became kind of more of the same, where it was just, oh, I want to put an intake on the car. Oh, I don't want to spend $400 on this one. I'm gonna spend $50 on this one on eBay, and then I'm gonna buy this one because it has this one has the hose couplers I want. This one has the piping that I want. And then I'm gonna go on K&N's website and order a good filter for it, and then have this intake that has no heat shielding, no nothing. It's just basically a cone filter sitting under the hood of a 4-cylinder car. Not ideal. And then you move on to your next vehicle, which you're like, okay, I'm going to do things right. And then you search for an intake for it, and you do the research. You find a good, well-made intake that you like, the design, and you go with that. And then you do everything a little more thought out, and then you get another vehicle and you go a little bit more thought out and methodical with things. And I kind of see the same trend in my cycling adventures. Is like on this bike, my bike before, there was a lot of just whatever brand on Amazon that fit the bill. If it was and there's a lot of, that's not knocking Amazon in any way. There's a lot of stuff on there that it has a very good reputation. I think the IXF or IFX cranks and bottom bracket, those tend to get a good reputation. I mean, they're very budget minded. However, they're functional. They get the job done, and they're not, they're not going to break the bank as compared to like Shimano or SRAM or something like that. So there are some things, and you can do your research, but like this bike, when I switched out the chainring, I went back with a SRAM chainring. Also because no company actually makes. I had actually looked at Wolf Tooth, and they made one, but they no longer make it. But there is going back to, going with parts that aren't just cheap parts just to put the part on the bike, but going with the correct parts so the part's actually gonna last. Because my thing was, when I bought this bike, I bought it to last me. And I mean, obviously it's got a useful life. Eventually things are gonna wear out, and it's gonna be more cost effective to just purchase a new bike. But a lot of the stuff I'm doing on it, like I ordered a new mount and it actually came in yesterday. It's a KOM cycling stem mount for the Garmin computer and light, and I put that on, and I was kind of trying to figure out how I could put something together with parts on eBay, not eBay, Amazon. And then I started thinking about, I'm like, I'm not 100% certain that all this stuff is actually going to line up and work together. And then it's like I'm ending up with this bulky, kind of made to kind of work together setup. So I ended up going back and saying, you know what, let me find this one, that the KOM cycling one. Let me find it. And I found it, and I ordered that one. Installed it yesterday, and so far it's perfect. Only thing is the mount on the bottom of it. I thought it would interface with the little quarter turn Garmin mount, because it looks exactly alike. But I'm guessing the tolerances are just enough different. And it could be the difference between, like, the tolerances on their part is just a little bit. And, like, there's a tolerance range on their end, there's a tolerance range on the Garmin end. And it might be possible that if you're on a certain tolerance range on that and a certain tolerance range on the Garmin plastic piece, the little quarter turn piece, that it'll work. But in my case, I ended up having to mount my Garmin light to the GoPro little 3-prong mount that they include, and use that for the light, which it works just fine. It actually, I would say, mounts easier to the bracket than using the Garmin little quarter turn mount, just because that one you kind of had to line it up and kind of hold it in place and turn that quarter turn lock ring on there. And sometimes you wouldn't get, it wouldn't line up quite right using the Garmin mount. So now with this one, it seems like it just, you kind of just push it up there, turn it, and it's done. It's on. No problems. And the computer, it doesn't seem to like snap into place like it did, but it does, like, it doesn't have like the like kind of click into place like on the Garmin, the Garmin made mount, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be any problem. It's like there's a detent on the Garmin one, and the one on here just isn't as strong. It's still secure feeling though. But that's my big thing. And then this one too, this bike too, like, kind of like, when you get your first car, like, you're learning stuff, you're learning what you like, and then as you get, another vehicle, and you kind of learn, like, okay, I liked this, but I'm in a different place in my life now. I was younger, I had exhaust on vehicles and stuff like that, aftermarket exhaust. And the vehicle I have now, I have factory exhaust, haven't touched anything, other than, maintenance type items, haven't touched anything on the motor, haven't done anything to, a few little cosmetic things, but, stuff, very, very low key type stuff. And it's all, and everything I've done, it's like, I try and really think it out, because, you start to just, as you get older, you kind of look at things a little bit differently. And, things that when you were a kid were, you wanted to do, as you get older, it's just kind of like, that's not really a priority to me. Or, I don't want to be the vehicle going down the street that catches everybody's attention. I want to be I just want to, be left alone, be low key, go to work, come home, not turn heads, just blend in. And same thing on the bike. I don't want to go out there and be the flashy cyclist that, you know, everybody turns and looks like, ooh, he's a cyclist. No, I want to ride my bike. Leave me alone. I don't want to be bothered. It's kind of aggravating. Like sometimes they'll have some people out along the trail, and it's usually like younger teenagers and stuff like that. And, they'll just say stupid stuff, and you just kind of. I use bone conducting headphones, so it's like I can hear what they're saying, and it's one of those you just ignore it and keep riding. Obviously if it's some kind of like safety type concern, like they're yelling threats or something like that, then still I'm not gonna feed into that. You just kind of make mental note of, okay, these people are being a little hostile. All right, it was a male in a white shirt and a male in a blue shirt, and you can kind of, because the way I ride is I ride the same route out and the same route back, so you can kind of be a little hyper vigilant when you're coming back through that area. Like, okay, where's the teenager in the white shirt and the teenager in the blue shirt? And usually by the time I'm coming back, they're already long gone. And most times, I've only once had, other than like people, just saying stupid stuff. I've only once had someone yell something kind of, a little unsettling, I guess you would say. It was like, hey, get off the bike. And it's like, why? It was just weird. And there was one night actually, there's like a little bridge, because there's a couple areas where there's like canals for the pumping stations that pass, have to, the trail goes over top of them. And there was a group of kids out there fishing, and I crossed over the bridge, and the bridge is only about like 30, 40 feet long, and 10 feet wide or so. And one of the teenagers that was hanging out on I keep saying kids, teenagers, they're teens, had like decided to, like, because on my bike I have my rear taillight function, has a radar on it, and basically warns me if there's anybody approaching. It'll detect cars. Most time it'll detect most bikes. Every now and then it'll miss a bike, but usually it'll catch them. Usually it'll catch them when they get closer. But most often times it'll catch them at its earliest alert distance that it can. Pedestrians, it'll detect. It's one of those. The smaller the object moving toward you gets, the less they kind of say it's supposed to. Like, it's meant to detect cars. Bikes and stuff like that starts to kind of get a little iffy. Pedestrians a little bit more iffy, stuff like that. But it's like I'm looking on the radar, and it's like you can see like the dot, which was them, was like right behind me. Like, what are you doing? And that's kind of my point. Like, I'm not trying to bother y'all. I don't care what y'all are doing. If y'all are doing something, unethical, immoral, whatever, I'm not going to tell you anything just because I'm not looking for that confrontation. I'll take appropriate action. But I'm not gonna be the one to, depending on what it is. I mean, if you're making a victim of a person and they clearly can't defend themselves, and but if it's all case by case, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. So, I'm gonna do what's right in a given situation. But it's one of those things, like, if I'm not bothering you, leave me alone. And I'm not going out there to bother anybody. And I guess it's one of those things, like, when you get, people together and they're hanging out, it's like that. I got to try and look cool to my friend. And, at that age, you're still very naive to the world, because at that age you're like, well, I'm a teenager, nobody's going to do anything. But this isn't the 90s anymore. you know you may yell something to the wrong person and they may be having a bad day and it may be lights out or something. And I'm not trying to go into that thing, but you know I have a friend that goes out on the same path, and I'll let them know anything that I've noticed that's abnormal. I'll send them a message and just let them know. That way, like, hey, if you happen to go out there, there's some people out there. There's some people that were sleeping on the bench, on this particular bench with some shopping carts with their belongings. Chances are they're harmless, and like more likelihood than not is that they are. But just, hey, just letting you know that they're out there. That way, you can kind of, that way you're aware. Or, hey, when I went past here, there was some broken glass on the ground. It may be cleaned up by the time they go out there, but just stuff like that to give them a heads up, to where it's like you're not going into a situation without knowing anything about that situation. So, and I've when I've talked to them a few times, we've both said that, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about. I know who did that." There was a group of people out there, and they were acting like immature, what, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I can guarantee you that was them." And it's just one of those things, like, there's, and it really bothers me because there's trash receptacles out there, and it's like, you go fishing, you have your container with your worms in it, or you have your box of chicken or whatever, your bag of McDonald's, your beers or whatever. Like, I don't care. I don't care if you're eating chicken or eating McDonald's or drinking a beer while you're fishing. There's trash cans. Take your stuff. Don't leave it on the fishing bridge. Pack all your stuff. Pack your trash up. Put it in the trash can. It's like there's no reason for it. I've rode across the bridge a couple times, and I've found fishing hooks and stuff like that. And one of the times there was a fisherman right fishing on the bank at the foot of the bridge, and I grabbed the hook and I yelled to the father, and I asked him, "Hey, you got a fishing hook up here with a little fishing little setup on it." I said, "You want it?" And he was like, "Oh, I mean, I don't really need it, but I mean, I could take it with me." And I said, "All right, man." I said, "Look," I said, "I just don't want some kid to get it caught up in their foot or something like that." "Oh yeah, I agree." And I mean, I'm not saying it was theirs. I would 100% say it was somebody else that was fishing out there. But he at first he was like, "I'll take it, and I'll get rid of it when I get to the house." And then he looked at it. He was like, "Ooh, this is a better hook for out here than what I got right now. I think we'll put this on my line." So it's just one of those things. It's like just being a little bit aware. And if you've watched some of my other videos, you know like what I'm talking about the route and stuff like that I ride. But it's one of those things, like, and if you're watching this video and you're one of them knuckleheads that are just treated like you wouldn't want me to come to your house and throw beer bottles in your kitchen and stuff like that, and leave leave trash all around your house. Maybe if you live at home with mom and dad and you just don't care because your mom and dad pick up after you, then you probably just don't care and you leave your room a mess and mom and dad picks up after you. I don't know. But it's like, pick up your trash, throw it away. To you, it might be one beer bottle, but, that beer bottle could become dangerous, could become, something, that beer bottle can turn into more than just trash, in the wrong hands or in the wrong situation. Somebody falls off their bike, lands in that beer bottle, now instead of just getting scraped up on the concrete, gets shattered glass in their ear or in their eyes or whatever. Some little kid falls and the beer bottle cracks. Now little Johnny or little Susie, instead of just having a scraped up knee and scraped up palms, now has glass, and they're having to go to the hospital and getting glass picked out of their chin. Don't pick up your crap. And unless somebody's bothering you, and even if somebody's bothering you, be the better person and just get on out of there. If you're the one that your friends are bothering people, you know, is that really who you want to hang around with? Because you don't know who your friends are picking a fight with. You don't know what kind of day that person's had. You don't know You don't know their mental status. You don't know anything about that person that your friends hollering things to. This isn't the '90s anymore, the '80s. Which I grew up in that era. This isn't that generation anymore. And people don't care that you're a teenager. Like, they're not gonna care. You're man enough to yell something. You're man enough to take the consequences. And my opinion is I'm gonna just get out of the situation. But other people aren't gonna take that route and are gonna take whatever you yelled at them, and they're gonna take that and they're gonna make you regret saying what you said. So it's just one of those, like, you got to be careful out there. Um, and it's one of those things too. It's like, I go out to ride for enjoyment, for fun, to relax and stuff like that. So, you know, somebody, trying to bother my ride is, it's like, you're taking a slice of my day of relaxing. To you, it's, you're just having fun. To me, this is, I have a stressful enough life as it is. This is my time to relax. Don't mess with it. You know, and it's all about it's etiquette. It's what it comes down to. Because then too, you kind of upset somebody, get somebody a little agitated, and then they may not be as kind to the next person that they come across. Someone may just you've got them kind of already a little bit aggravated, and then somebody else just aggravates them, and instead of just all right, let me just go around the person who's walking the wrong way down the path, who should be on the other side, but now I gotta, or the person that's taking a break at the picnic table and their bikes, and not off on the little concrete area by the picnic table or in the little bike rack by the picnic tables, but their bikes, halfway across the entire path. And instead of just not letting that phase you, you got that person aggravated because of the stuff that you were hollering at them, and now they go and tell that person off because their bike's in the path, stuff like that. And that's all stuff that I've dealt with on that path. People stop and take a break. It's like, if you're stopping and taking a break, move your bike to the side of the path. If you and your you got a family of 6 or 8, put your bikes off of the path. You don't need to have them all in the path. Kind of like when your mom fussed you when you were a kid for leaving your shoes in the middle of the floor. Same kind of thing. People are trying to go down this, and something may come up, like, I'm whatever. I may be, a bee might be flying in my face, and I'm trying to deal with the bee, and I might be distracted by that, and I run over your bikes and get all, scraped up because I crashed into your bikes that you had laying all over the path. It's like, be considerate of others, have some etiquette, clean up after yourself. On my bike, it comes up in the forums, or the little Facebook groups and the cycling groups, where people are asking, what do you carry in case of X, Y, or Z, and it'll be like if you get a flat or your chain breaks. Well, I carry an extra tube on my bike. I carry a couple patches. I don't carry any plugs. The multi-tool I have came with plugs, but because I don't have tubeless tires, I got rid of the plugs. I have them, but I carry them on my bike. They're in my tire plug kit. And but it's like, my thing is, if somebody needed a hand, I've got a little tire pump. Like, I don't mind. I'm not even don't even pay me for the tube. I'm gonna go on Amazon, order a new one for a few bucks. My thing would be, hey, just pay it forward. You know, next time you come across somebody that needs a hand and they got a flat tire or broken chain, if you got the stuff to help them, just, stop and help them out. You know, even if you don't have the stuff to help them, I, generally on my rides, I drink nowadays. I've only been going through about a half a bottle of water on my ride. Sometimes maybe a full bottle, just depends. Now, after a ride, I usually end up drinking another, either finishing that bottle or finishing that bottle and drinking another bottle of water. But I'd have no problem if somebody was on the trail, and even if I couldn't help them with their problem, hey, you want a bottle of water? It's not really cold or anything. I mean, it's not hot, but it's not cold. It's kind of just, by now it's probably just outdoorish temperature. But hey, you want a bottle of water? Or you need me to hold a flashlight while you get your chain fixed or get whatever it is, corrected. Just stuff like that. Or even just as simple, and I've mentioned this a while back, but something as simple as, hey man, you alright? Or hey ma'am, you alright? Or hey, you alright? Even, if you don't want to worry about, saying a gender, just, hey, are you alright? There was one night, and it was one of those things. I'd had a day where I typed up a big report, and the report, I don't know what happened. I thought I saved it. I didn't. I had to retype that whole report. And when I say whole report, it was like 5 pages. It wasn't anything crazy, but it was enough that it was just a little bother. And I had a couple other little things, but it was just the adding up of a few little issues and stuff like that, just in the day, that just kind of took the day. And I was having an issue, and I think I'd stopped to try and figure out what was going on with my lockout for one of the shocks on my bike. And it turned out there was a screw in there that had fallen out. But I was trying to figure that out, and a cyclist passed me, said, "Hey, you all right?" That meant all of the difference in the world. Even though, it was like, "Yeah, I'm good." It was just the fact that somebody, just while they were passing, had enough courtesy to just ask if I was all right. And I wasn't all right. I was stressed, but them asking that made a huge difference in my day. It was like, you know what? If there had been a problem, they would have stopped and helped. And that made that helped. Because it wasn't one of those days where it was like, even if I'd have said, if I'd have said anything, it's, they may have stopped and it's like, well, what's going on? Well, I need a screw for this, but I don't think you carry a bag of screws, and even if you did, I guarantee you don't have this right size. Plus, a new lever on Amazon is like $5, so I just ordered it. I think I even ordered one while I was, taking that little break. Once I realized what the problem was. But, just little things like that. And, that's why, to me, cycling is so important. I enjoy, the fitness improvements. Like I was telling a couple people today, this, I remember it used to take me 45 minutes to get to my turnaround point, and now in that same 45 minutes, I'm making it about another mile and a half. And to me, that's incredible. To others that may just be like, whatever, mile and a half, that's nothing. To me, a mile and a half is a big deal, especially in the fact that my ride, I'm now getting more distance in the same amount of time. Is really awesome. It's just, to me, it's just showing that my physical fitness and conditioning and all that has improved. Is it by leaps and bounds? No. But, like they say, Rome wasn't built in a day, and, things do take time. So, I think that's going to wrap up today's video. This actually went on a little bit longer than I thought it would. But, did cover some things that definitely needed to be covered. And just to one last time, just throwing out there, if when you're upgrading your bike, it's okay to go budget on stuff, but do your homework and don't go the cheap route. Go the budget friendly route. And I know that's a very strange distinction, but cheap, go with the one that's, I recommend going with what will work for what you need and be a quality part. It doesn't need to have the Shimano or SRAM or whatever branding, but it needs to be a part that's going to work and be safe and last an amount of time that you're happy with. Next thing, trail etiquette. Whether you're on a paved, municipality, city-owned, government-owned, parish-owned, county-owned, state-owned, federally owned. If you're on some piece of property or whatever, whether it's your street, whether it's a bike path, bike trail, mountain bike, whatever, leave no trace. Go with that mentality. Leave no trace. And if you're going to interact with anybody, only be things that are positive in nature, and not just things that you think might, that's not going to make a difference. If somebody passes you and you want to wave at them and say hi, great. If you don't want to wave at anybody and say hi, don't say anything. Keep your mouth shut. You never know who somebody is or what's going on or where they may be or where you may be. That person may remember the tone of your voice or the sound of your voice, and they may be the person that you got to do an interview with in 5 years after you've worked hard for that degree. And they know everybody else in that industry, and they somehow just remembered that, wait, you're that guy that yelled that stuff that one night. And it's possible. You never do know. You never know. Best thing to do, leave people alone. Think about it like this. If you were out there with your sibling and your little sibling, and mom said, make sure, don't let anything happen to your little sibling, and somebody yelled at your little sibling anything, you wouldn't be happy about it. So don't yell to other people. Leave them alone. Don't leave your trash out there. Be courteous. Stuff like that. If somebody's out there, I understand situations and stuff like that, and you can't, but if somebody looks like they need a hand, try and offer a hand, if you can. I understand that people can't, or you may feel uncomfortable with the situation and just feel it unsafe to offer a hand, and that's fine too. Like I said, everything comes down to your safety. At the end of the day, go with what's in your safety interest. If you don't feel comfortable, for whatever reason, don't stop. Just keep on riding. But anyway, and like I said in the very beginning, this video is going to be uploaded at a lower resolution because that's that. Hope you found this video entertaining, interesting. I'm sure I'll be back next weekend. Maybe I'll have a video from the bike this week. Who knows?